I think we're going to get started. I am Holly Hardy, and I teach English 14 here at Berkeley City College, which is the class that writes the BCC Voice, which is Berkeley City College's student newsletter written by students, for students and faculty here at Berkeley City College. It's the only journalism class that we have here at Berkeley City College. It has a lot of freedom. It's a super fun class, usually a really small class. And so students work pretty closely together to produce the whole issue. A bunch of my students are here. Raise your hand if you're in my class right now. Thanks for being here, you guys. There's also people from my 1A class here. Thank you guys for coming. So today is just a celebration of the two issues that we did this semester. There's a third issue that's going to come out next week, is our interview issue. You can see all of our issues on our website, bccvoice.net. And our current issues, it's always free. So help yourself to food throughout, and if you change your mind during the reading and you want to go ahead and sign up for the open mic, just flag us down and you can slot in. We're just going to have a few people up here representing the voice of Berkeley City College, starting with my very own Stephanie. Will you guys clap for her? Especially for being first. Come on.
Thank you, Holly. Hi, y'all. So I'm going to be reading some selections from my article that I wrote in our first spring issue, which is this one. We have it over here if you'd like. It's called Where's the Power? Anniversary of Bloody Thursday and the Demolition of People's Park. 50 years ago, a progressive rally to defend People's Park from being fenced off and turned into a sports field turned into an infamous riot known as Bloody Thursday, when UC Berkeley students clashed violently with police, and then California Governor Ronald Reagan called in the National Guard to subdue the protesters. The future of People's Park is relevant again due to UC Berkeley Chancellor Carol T. Christ's controversial plans to develop the majority of the park into a student housing facility, creating 1,000 new beds and allowing for future quote-unquote supportive housing for those suffering from homelessness, as announced in a university press release. However, it's unclear how the university will achieve its goal to support Berkeley's most vulnerable citizens, because planning and construction for the supportive housing will not begin until an outside developer with the funds and resources to create it. The BCC Voice asked UC Berkeley students to comment on the development plan for People's Park in terms of how they would be affected and whether they would believe another student movement, just like Bloody Thursday, would occur to protect the park from being demolished. I think People's Park stands for a lot of things and represents a lot of values UC Berkeley used to care about, but they might not necessarily walk it like they talk it, you know what I mean? Said UC Berkeley sophomore Mandahai Batar, 20, who lives across the street from the park. I think the park provides something for people who don't have anywhere else to go. For the most part, they don't bother anyone. Students in the school are scared of all of them and dehumanize them a lot. Like, you can even see when students walk through, their whole bodies clench up. I think a lot of that has to do with privilege, class, race, and just kids being sheltered and feeling uncomfortable around homeless people, because that's what parents have taught them. I think the construction is going to further gentrify the city of Berkeley. UC Berkeley sophomore Eve Weisberger, 19, told The Voice. They're trying to do this very quietly, and it's gonna work because the vast majority of students walk by with complete disregard for those who live in the park. It's dehumanizing. Like, they can't even stay here overnight, but at least they can congregate during the day. And sometimes it's a really beautiful thing to see people congregating from all kinds of races and backgrounds. And while it can be said that some of them are maybe on drugs, maybe crackheads, it's just a massive generalization to make it on an entire community. There are circumstances that place them there, and by completely removing the support system in the spaces where they all congregate, like, you're just gonna worsen the problem. They're all just gonna slip out into the streets, and it's gonna exacerbate everything that already exists. The Voice was also went on site to People's Park to speak to those who will be the most affected by the approaching construction. If the park wouldn't have been here, it would have been a really big problem with the structure of my life at the time, because I was in and out of prison. Recalled Jay from East Oakland, an on and off resident of the park for 30 years who was unaware of the administration's plans to turn the park into housing facilities. Oakland natives Deshaun, 33, and Rick, 54, both refuted the claim that People's Park is a high crime area due to 10,012 UCPD-related events documented over the past 5 years. Deshaun and Rick agreed that students will most likely not take action when the proposed construction on People's Park begins. Jay was more optimistic. It's gonna be some tricky stuff, he said. But I know the things I know about Berkeley, it might be a small city, but it has a hell of a punch to it. There's some very bright peoples here, you know what I'm saying? They can see past that bullshit. When it comes down to it, I think the people's gonna win. That's how I feel in my soul, you know what I'm saying? That the people will be heard, should be heard, and should be respected. And that's the end of my article. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Stephanie, for putting it out there and going first for us and for writing that article. Next we have Trayvon. He is from the Poetry Club, and he's been up at most of our release parties. Clap it up for Trayvon, you guys.
What's good, BCC? How y'all doing? That was weak. How y'all doing? It's a little better. Do I have your attention right now? Low key, un poquito. My name is Trey. I'm the former president of the Berkeley City College Poetry Club, the Poetry and Performing Arts Club. Now, my student leader, Skylar, has taken over. I'm also your Chief Justice right now, so if you guys have any questions, please come to the ASBCC office and we're here to help you. Do not feel like you're alone, we're here for you. So right now, I'm gonna spit something off the top of my head real quick. Silence, all I ever asked for. In this moment, bleeding through, the question lingering in my mind, where to go? The UCs, the state. Am I smart enough, bright enough, shining like a light that led Harriet Tubman to freedom? I stop, I digress and think. Depression starts to sink in. Insecurities lurking in my room deep at night. First generation, mama said you gonna make it, you gonna be somebody. But then them bodies in the back, my shadow following me around says, you ain't shit. But then I stop and think, are you serious with me? Man in the mirror, Michael Jackson, as I spin so smooth, moonwalking in the back, face to face, trying to keep it oh so clean and fresh, you dig me? Well wait, maybe I'm like Julius Caesar, a little too cautious, enemies around me, trying to shoot, leave me on the scene. Slowly, slowly, I creep on the floor, asking and pleading, do you hear me? But then I stop and rethink, oh yeah, I'm the man, OG, like my pops told me, left me though. Granddad said, you the OG, come back again, spin it around, moonwalking so clean, so smooth, criminal, pool so big. But then I pop back surprised and say, damn, I did that again? Let me stop and think again, UC State, Berkeley College, coming up, rising. But then that stepping stone says, I'm gonna fall back again. In your state of limbo, trying to smooth it down so low. But then I say I'm human, and that's the way it goes. You dig?
Up next, did we turn it off? He turned it off. Up next, we have one of Laura Zink's students from the fiction class, River, is going to come on up to the mic. Clap for River, you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. You know, I've never been in front of one of these before. Thought about it a lot. Wondered what it would be like. My life is built around the dream of having a crowd in front of me. My father was a minister, his father was a minister, and they gave me that dream. I didn't give it to me. And being around other people has let me wake up from that dream and realize that I don't want to talk to people so much as I want to create something that someone else can see. And so my writing has changed from angry over time to a chess knight lay on its side on the floor. It was an elegant horse's head of black marble, its face frozen in a snarl, eyes enraged, mane flying. Beside it on the floor there lay a white pawn, faceless and collared. The sun came low through the glass door that opened onto the garden. Pale light spilled over the chessmen and drew long shadows on the floor with their fallen bodies. Fine dust lay upon them a thin layer of gray to measure the time since they had fallen to the floor and been abandoned. All about them, the other pieces lay, toppled onto their sides, streaked with dust. They were marble, white and black, dressed with dark felt soles from a time when once they stood upright. The shadows they cast were long and parallel, like a row of headstones, like fingers reaching from the ground, like the teeth of a hungering darkness. In the soldiers' graveyard there were no enemies. Pawns and kings lay all alike, scattered without regard to rank or color. Their war was over, and their usefulness was past. Someday they might be gathered off the floor and set back in their starting squares to fight again. Until then, they lay in silence, without allegiance or desire. The sun dipped below the horizon, then came back up the other side of the world. It sailed across the sky, imperious and golden, then sank below into night once more. Around and again it went. The shadows of the chessmen turned like clock hands as it passed, growing long and short and long again, fingers reaching for something they could not find. Winter came, and the sky turned pale, and the garden dressed itself in white. Winter passed, and the rains came, and the droplets fell against the glass garden doors. They drew the wandering lines of tears as they slid down, glistening in the dim light of a cloudy day. The world turned to summer, and the garden filled with green. Every day the sun soared by, and the dark shadows of the chessmen trailed across the floor and grasped at nothing. Under the gathering dust, the lords and ladies lay beside their soldiers. Silently, they counted out the seasons passing them by. 1 year, and another, and the next. They came and went with their snows and rains, their blooms and autumn winds. A gust of red leaves blew by the door, and their shadows flitted over the floor, kissing the cheeks of the fallen chessmen before vanishing. The leaves swirled over the footpath through the garden. They whispered to each other as they danced down the wind to the creek at the edge of the garden. "Do you think they'll ever play another game?" asked a leaf to another. "They do not play games," said the second leaf. "They are soldiers." "Can they not play games?" "They are not like you and I," said the second leaf. "They are of singular purpose, made for the contest of great minds." The wind blew, whistling in the bare tree branches, and the leaves skittered and hissed down the way to the water's edge. Their shadows, faint and fleeting, skipped and soared over the grass, over rocks and mosses. "Do we have a purpose?" asked a leaf to another. "Yes," said the second leaf, "but I do not know it." "Do you know where we are going?" "No," said the second leaf, "but we shall learn in time." The leaves raced down to the creek and alighted on its surface. They made ripples as they touched, dainty and echoing. Down the current they were carried, over stones and down little falls. "Farewell," a leaf said to the wind. "Where to now?" another leaf asked of the water. "Onward," said the stream, "onward and downward down the stream bed." "Do you know where we are going?" asked the leaf. "No," said the water, "but we shall learn in time." All the trees were bare and all the leaves had blown away. Soon the first snows would come. The chessmen had seen it all before, watched it all through the glass. Under their blankets of dust they slept, black and white, kings and pawns, equals in death. Someday they might be gathered off the floor and set back in their starting squares to fight again. Until then they lay in silence, without allegiance or desire.
River, that was lovely. First time in a microphone. You should keep coming back. So we have just a few more. Any people that have just arrived, this is the BCC Voice release party. You can have as many copies of issues as you'd like, and also if you're interested in writing for us next semester, starting in the fall, you can sign up for English 14. There's flyers roaming around. Snacks are totally free. If you want to, come whisper in my ear if you want to get added to the list. Meanwhile, we're going to have Thomas come up. He's here in the journalism class. He's also taken a poetry workshop with me in the city. So I think he's going to give us some poems. Come on up, Thomas. Let's clap for him.
Thank you very much. I've also taken some classes in poetry here. Oops, we on or off still? Hello. Hi, my name's Thomas. I've also taken some other classes here with Jenny Lowood, if Shakespeare counts as a poet, with Sharon Coleman, a series of poetry classes, and way back when Thomas Muniz had a class in converting autobiography into fiction, I think. And I've had some other classes at Berkeley, at City College of San Francisco. So I'm not a poet by nature, but I've found that it helps me deal with the regular type of reading and writing I do, which is absolutely not poetic. So this first poem is called Chrome Bumper. Chrome Bumper. Between heat-cracked white crosswalk lines, under a silent, blinking streetlight, beneath a low cloud, light gray Pacific Fall sky, on a dark gray Long Beach surface street, a red light flashed from the ambulance. A movie or live television, it must be. It cannot be me at the center of the commotion. We do not have our own color television. There is no movie screen, no popcorn. I stood by a car, my bicycle at the intersection, wrecked. There were no screams and no commercials. The confusion was in slow motion. Witnesses. What had happened? Is that the kid? Where's the driver? Sit down, orders the officer. I've seen people walk on broken legs. My parents told me I was a brave young lad, kindly not mentioning the lack of fuzz on my 10-year-old upper lip. They said I was not hurt. There would be no fuss, no lawsuit, that I would get a new bicycle, anyone I wanted. My uncle, with his white neck brace, told me to spit on where it hurt. Though days have dissolved calendars and tides turned bluffs to beaches, I remember the dark chrome bumper looming inches from my head, shadowed cover to a metal casket, sun-blocked, a swipe at the reaper's scythe. A car passes the white lane, my red line, pulses rush, rising rage. My hand goes to the keys in my pocket to gouge the vehicle as it moves obliviously on. This incident happened at a time when I had received my first hardback book, A History of the Civil War, illustrated with period etchings of battlefields and generals. But I also still played with plastic soldiers, organizing campaigns in the dirt by the tree. That day, it has a date, and the report I have read does not have an anniversary. Each crosswalk violated or screeching car collapses time. Now is then, again I am 10. This is called Insight a Vision. No, not about that I'd write tonight, nor would I act upon the unsaid yet. Not so would I go where dark is unlit, for these would fast unsettle fear and fret. To let alone now, just this time or two, tomorrow's sunrise, rays of unknown hue, too much tumult to touch, hear, sense or view, turned in an existential vortex pew. I floater, throbs in colors electric. I see dust, a hair there, or a dead thread. Isolate, immediate, poetic, ivory orb, stretching, DNA dread. No, I'll with another grammar yammer, now with my stammer, common sense dispense. All right, another one. Rousted at Civic Center. As leaves from fallen lives, delivered from their thought trees, grace the morning moist sidewalks of despair between the monuments of culture, Civic Center's main library and the Asian Art Museum, alike solemn bastions of the tax base. Encamped against the barrier wall, itself holding stacks of books in and the populace out, under the protection of pioneer monuments celebrating the conquest of California, dominated by the goddess of victory and her tamed verdigris bronze golden bear, each with their gaze fixed on the City Hall dome in the style of conquerors, as only statuary can stare, with the great pigeon perched on the goddess's head, white deposits crusted beneath, accreted, accentuating her crown. This is the moment, humanely 7:30, when the homeless are rousted from their overnight nests of cardboard and disaster blankets, raked up by officers wearing baby blue plastic gloves as a barrier against the contagion of unmanageable lives, lest our finest be fouled gathering what is left behind on the sidewalk. The stain maker's leavings, untidy evidence of almost eking out an existence. As some mothers' children, many parents themselves, now haggard, wind-blown, sun-dried, eyes glazed to the squint of lost focus, tumble without conviction to begin a new last day and another rung on the ladder, directionless, herded, heedless away, with tattooed emotions licking their pores for salt, as the unnamed, unwashed, unfed, unattended slowly disperse along unmarked paths to elsewhere, as they emerge in pairs or alone, with unleashed dogs, guided by scent more than sense, or tether themselves to the providence of a wheelchair or rubber-tipped walker, zombie shuffle to today, with the past trailing like a wheel across the plains, ruts cut too deep to close the flesh of the earth, too deep to leave an open mind. As they flow slowly into the community, preachers find corners to preach the unspoken word, philosophers serve notice by soliloquy, unnoticed by the absent crowds. Indifferent seagulls peck at the stirred refuse in competition with the spilt crack harvesters. Workers prepare to hose down the sidewalk encampment to mitigate the odor of homelessness. "You're in San Francisco," someone laughs without glee or commitment. "You're a species of feces," another flings a retort, and toothless mouths laugh, glancing sidewalks. Even numbness has feelings, so the paranoid used to say. Thank you very much.
Did we lose him? Did we lose Paul? Is he back? He might have had an emergency he had to run off to, I think. Anybody else feeling brave, coming late, wanna? Yeah, come on up. This is Scott, you guys. Clap for Scott. Let me get you. Speak right here.
All right, this is super short. It's great to have a pair of poet's glasses to which to gaze and ponder time and wonder at all which through them passes, but I would not envy a poet's eyes. As details sing their songs of splendor whenever strikes them day or night, while death flirts with dread and glory over cocktails and sweet delight.
Thanks, Scott. Who else wants to come up and give it a try? Who's feeling brave?
Tell us a story.
Anybody? All right, I'll read you a couple poems before we stop. And afterwards, if you change your mind, there's still time for you. La lengua del cielo. I search for home in the hollows of your body, where salt blooms like an orchid and ages like a stone, ancient and solid. We gather our names like seasons, like secrets, like long term. We learn to be brave, means to do what scares us, to risk and reveal our most fragile parts. Butterfly wings and wishbones, castles of breath, a sky full of stars, a mouthful of distance. We spend our faith on the fickleness of weather, trust in the certainty of fire. In Spanish, the word for language is the same as the word for tongue. We learn to communicate in waves, water whispering along a body of truth. Como salado y mojado, como claro, como luz. My night jasmine sleeps in the daytime with closed little fists of blooms, ready to burst into fragrance at the slightest touch of dusk. I want to find my way home to you without losing myself in the journey. In Spanish, the word for sky is the same as the word for heaven, is the same as the word for sweetheart. Mi cielo, mi amor, acércate a mí. Finite is not a metaphor for fire. Something dark and new growls or purrs inside the night circus, where my heart flutters like a spectacle in its little cage. The lion, the whip, and the taste of you lingers like a season. Nicotine and leather, those hands. I've been drinking about my feelings again, here in this forest of us, where everything is newly planted. Are we rocks or air? A flash of teeth as a tide of you rolls out. Light shines through the doorway like a message from home, like an autumn sun slipping into afternoon. Here is a lesson about truth, sculpted from bricks and glass. Here is another Manhattan. I'm trying to be taller again, and you are teaching me to wait. This cherry is not a metaphor for loss. The way blood prefers to be inside the body, but rushes away at every opening. A kind of defeat by escaping. This fear of silence which binds the city. I want to see the stars again. I want to walk with you in the rain. I wake up with my hands folded over my chest like a coffin. Sometimes you're here, nestled in the small of my back, and sometimes you're gone. All right, I'll read you one more. This is an old one, it's called Storm. The nightscape is a skillet of coffee shops, bone split patterns of jagged light, a swarm of incorrect sky. Nor can the go that green gives be ignored. These flesh vessels, their slippery delights, your willful promiscuity. We are wet hair, soul-drenched, infused with liquor. We are the sound of rain on a roof. Here is a uterus I just know you're going to love. Unyielding, purpling, the unraveling of the throat. In a storm that doubles as longing, how we flutter and thrust and ache, gnaw at the angel's bloody hammer, strain against the rope, in this garden of little letdowns, until at last we curl in sleep, like private animals, guardians of tenderness. Thanks, you guys. Does anyone else want to come up and read us something, say something, make a noise about something? All right. You have one more thing? You have one more? Okay, we're going to have one more thing from Thomas.
We've heard a bunch of emotions and deep thoughts, and that's what poetry is sometimes. The classes that are typically given here and elsewhere that I've attended, usually the teacher gives you an assignment. You have an assignment. It's called homework, and you're supposed to bring the poem to class, and then the students provide constructive criticism or just criticism, depending. But I was not able to get to class one day, and I was taking it perhaps overly serious. And I did this. I wasn't able to get to class, but I submitted my poem. Not here, not there, yet, via email. I must report myself missing, alas. Due to work conflict, I'll not be in class. Tonight, an MCLE seminar demands at BCC, I'll not be there. So, to make all needed amends, and with classmates I might still be good friends, I will workshop my thoughts on the surreal, so my meter and rhyme survive appeal. This is not to say I'll have no regrets, but be there I can't, 'tis true nonetheless. I'm nearing dreaded Civic Center BART, must conclude this note, then quickly depart. What is to be learnt? It must be admitted. Won't change the fact, this week's poem's submitted.
All right, so just one last time, this was the BCC Voice, which is English 14, and we'd love for you to come write for us in the fall if you're interested. Meanwhile, thanks for coming out today. Make sure you grab a copy of our latest issues over here. You can also find us on our website, thebccvoice.net. There's flyers around for the class, and there's snacks, so come grab them and talk to each other, and have a great day and good finals week next week. Thanks for coming.